Hi, everybody. It's Dot, and I'm here with a bunch of feedback. I've been reading your stuff all day and taking a bunch of notes. I'm really excited about the thinking you're doing on your own and together. You're doing some great collaborating. Hooray. Thank you. So I want to clarify, I want to applaud you for a few things and clarify a few things. Okay. This will be loosely organized. So first thing I'm going to talk about is formative summative interim assessment. And I'm just going to return back to a quote from page 110 of the Valencia and Hebard article, or is a chapter actually. They say, what is essential to understand about this research about formative assessment is that the results were obtained by implementing specific features of formative assessment that are quite different from those typically associated with assessment. More specifically, the type of formative assessment that produced these positive results resembles teaching more than assessment. It's not a set of tests or even open-ended activities that students complete. Formative assessment is an interaction between the teacher and the student. And the evidence from the assessment must actually be used to modify teaching or meet students' needs. And it seems like you all really picked up on that idea of formative really means that the data is being used to serve the students. And we'll kind of return back to that today and kind of throughout the rest of the term and hopefully throughout the rest of your teaching career. So part of what that draws our attention to is the importance of the data that we walk away with from the assessment. Of course, when we have an interaction, we're going to sort of mentally record some information, that we'll remember about the student. But realistically, when you have a class of 25 or 35 or however many students, what you're going to be able to act on is the data that you record. That might be in terms of a score, or it might be in terms of the miscues that they're doing and the sources of information, the cueing systems that they're using to help them, make sort of guesses at unfamiliar words. But if it's not recorded somewhere, then it's not really data that can inform your instruction. So, for example, when you have a tool like the DIBELS Nonsense Word Fluency, where the students are reading a list of nonsense words, but what's recorded is just the number correct per minute. We know something about where they are on a continuum in terms of their ability to read those nonsense words. And there is some construct validity there in the sense of the variable of a word being recognizable, just like a word like mom or the or whatever. That's taken away, so we can really tell that this is an assessment of their decoding, but it doesn't give us any actionable information because it just gives us a score. Like, they're not as good at decoding as we wish, but we don't know and can't act on exactly what are the letter sounds or the patterns that they're struggling with. So in that way, a tool like the DIBELS Nonsense Word Fluency is a screener, right? A screener or an interim assessment, and it's really not formative. If you wanted to analyze where their errors were and develop kind of a catalog of the patterns that they are saying correctly and not, then you'd be moving more toward a potential formative assessment if you really use that data. An interim assessment, somewhere in the comments I saw a conflation of interim and diagnostic, and I just want to be clear, interim is typically like a screening tool. It's that progress monitoring kind of idea. So it's kind of a surface level, just like a thermometer in the cake along the way. A diagnostic tool is much more involved, and its purpose is to help us develop a profile of the student's strengths and needs so we can actually provide quality, effective intervention instruction. That's the point, right? Okay, so there were a couple questions about the San Diego Quick Assessment, like why is this in the comprehension chapter? Is this a sight word test? What's the deal? And basically, it's like a proxy, just like what Caldwell was writing about with the oral reading fluency. It's a proxy for comprehension. It's been demonstrated to have concurrent validity with measures of comprehension. What that means is the test developers tested a bunch of students on both the San Diego Quick and a test that's more sort of legitimately testing the construct of comprehension, and they noticed that the scores were related. Okay, so concurrent validity is a feature of an assessment that exists before we get it into our hands. It doesn't mean that we have to give another test alongside one in our class to get concurrent validity. The idea is that if I had a San Diego Quick test and then I had an established measure of comprehension and the students' scores were way off from each other, then I wouldn't be able to use it as a proxy one for the other. So the purpose of a tool like San Diego Quick is really just like if I'm wanting to get students in roughly just right books and I need to screen them real quick, like, I don't know, it's the first day of a summer reading camp or something and I want to get kids reading right away. That might be a quick tool I can use just to roughly estimate where they might be, or I might use it to help me figure out where to start with an informal reading inventory. I noticed one place where people were talking about essentially grade level equivalence as the way the scores are reported on an assessment. And I just want to remind you that that's a norm that the International Literacy Association does not recommend you using. And the reason is that except for a test like Peabody Picture Vocabulary Test that has been actually piloted on people from like 0 to 100, the test you're giving most likely hasn't been piloted on kids from other grade levels. So if a kid scores a grade level equivalent 10.2 on a third grade reading test, that doesn't really have any meaning because it's trying to say that that's how a 10th grader would score, but it was never piloted on 10th graders, so it's meaningless. So we just kind of erase that. Just don't even pay attention to it unless the test has been normed all the way across the grade span. Okay.